There's an us with a pattern we are threading.
There's the you that remains and remains.
There's a nearness and its gravity is echoing.
1,000 years from now, the greatest sin anybody could ever commit is enacted. A murder. A murder so disastrous, it nearly ends the last living human civilization on Earth. It's the start of one of this year's most compelling stories and best video games. This is 1,000 Times Resist, a science fiction story about family, immigration, religion, protest, humanity, and the end of the world. It's not easy to tell you what 1,000 Times Resist is. It's even harder to show you what the game is. Experienced mostly through extensive lengths of text box dialogue, 1,000 Times Resist plays out more like a visual novel rather than a traditional video game. And even then, that's not really the full picture. But what I can tell you about 1,000 Times Resist is that it's a game, a story that's very much alive. A dense philosophical meditation on humanity, leveraging high-concept sci-fi to tell an intimate story about mother-daughter relationships. It's a story of our own personal identities and all the ways we struggle to mold them, make them fit into our given societies. An illustration of the harsh realities of the Asian diaspora, and how it extends into truths of first-generation assimilation. In this regard, 1,000 Times Resist is both specific and broad. It's a personal exploration of one's biological and sociological inheritance, and how, the closer we get to deconstructing it, the further it transcends the limits of text, voice, and video, spilling over into the larger Asian diaspora of today. And in turn, to all those who struggle with grasping onto any kind of sense of identity. This is a story that exists in all of us. The specific made universal, reaching out from the borders of the screen but rising from within. And how, at every turn, someone or something is there to challenge us. 1,000 Times Resist isn't the game you think it is. It's difficult. It's complex. Subtle, yet acutely precise. Grand, but also particular. It isn't neatly cathartic. It's a complicated story of femininity, identity, and sisterhood. A cavalcade of color-coded dreams fighting for their place in the gilded garden of precarious utopia. It's everything you could want your sci-fi story to be. But most important of all, 1,000 Times Resist is a game that, despite all the destruction, all the decay, the disintegration, the apocalypse, the betrayals, the doubts, the regrets, the sins, is, in the end, really about hope, about restoration, both for ourselves and for each other. It's a game about futurity, and that also just so happens to be one of the best games of the year you probably haven't played yet. Praise the All-Mother, Hecky Grace, hair to hair and red to blue. Welcome to Save Room. I'm not joking when I say 1,000 Times Resist is a complicated game. Despite its straightforward gameplay, the complex narrative and high-concept premise make it difficult to pitch. But considering it's a smaller independent game not a ton of people played, So small, in fact, it actually doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. I figured it would be best to at least go over the basic elements of the premise before diving into any sustained analysis. And even though I cover some major narrative beats later in this video, it's worth noting I don't even touch half of what's in the game. If you're worried about spoilers, don't be. There's plenty of twists and dozens of moments I've saved for you to experience. 1000 Times Resist takes place in the past, present, and future. All sort of at once. Let me back up. One day, in the contemporary suburbs of Canada, Earth is invaded by an all-powerful alien species we've come to know as the Occupants, spelling disaster for humanity. The Occupants, who, in their omnipotent ways, come to observe and record humanity, to absorb our memories. In doing so, however, the Occupants indirectly expose their own memories to us, flooding our psyche with inquantifiable amounts of information greater than we can handle. The result is apocalyptic. Like a plague, exposure to the Occupants causes humans to literally cry themselves to death, as all moisture is steadily removed from their bodies. It's a pandemic of trauma. A slow, existentially dreadful death, of which there is no safety, no cure, no immunity. Except for one lonely teenage girl. Iris, a Chinese immigrant high school student. After coming in contact with an occupant, the entirety of Iris's high school begins to fall ill with the disease of endless tears. But Iris never does. Soon, she's contacted by an organization. They ask Iris to come with her, to study her, to give humanity a chance to fight back. The only caveat, she'll have to leave her home and her parents behind.
Once you leave us, I don't want to see you ever again.
It isn't an easy goodbye. In the years that follow, Iris watches society slowly collapse. And in time, her immunity leads to immortality. Iris now lives forever. 1,000 years in the future, Iris has built a society of clones, an ensemble of sisters whose names double as the function they serve. Principal, Knower, Fixer, Healer, Bang Bang Fire, and Watcher. All of these sisters now live in the utopian bubble of the Orchard, housed deep underwater, miles below the surface of the ocean, in the giant dome of an LCD sky and a network of interconnected trains you cannot board. Iris now leads the society as an all-powerful, indisputable god. Iris is the ALLMOTHER. Each of the primary sisters has their own set of understudies, known as shells, each donning their respective corresponding color. And even though each individual sister is hyper-individualistic, with opinions and desires, they are nonetheless reduced down to a naming convention consisting of a single qualifier that encapsulates their personality. You play as one of these primary clones. Watcher, whose duty it is to dive into the memories of the ALLMOTHER. To watch, to understand. Each dive into Iris's memory is known as a communion, an opportunity to connect with Iris before she became the ALLMOTHER. These memories, these communions, aren't just religious experiences, but religious texts themselves, meant to be studied, learned from, meditated on. There's no action in these communions, no attacking. The most video gamey thing about the game, actually, is a post-launch update that introduced a fairly basic map. And the only periods of extensive gameplay where you aren't moving from one conversation to the next are either time-shifting puzzles or brief instances of platforming. A complex premise, a simple game. Shortly after losing a friend, after Fixer is hailed by ALLMOTHER to board the train and fight the occupants on the surface, Watcher discovers a secret that changes everything she thought she knew about this society, about this supposed utopia. And yet, despite all the groundwork to explain this premise, 1000 Times Resist doesn't start here. You don't start at the beginning. You don't start with mass exposition. You don't start as Iris. No. Instead, the game thrusts you straight into the heart of the single most important consequential action, right as the game enters its climax. With that great sin somebody could ever commit in this kind of society, with the murder of its god. 1000 Times Resist starts with the killing of your creator, with the killing of the ALLMOTHER. It starts with Iris's death by your hands. On the 3rd month of the 30th year, the firstborn hid away, all alone and all forgotten. Between stone walls she endured, visioning a great utopia. And so, lonely as heck, she plucked from her own head 5 strands of hair, and from them created 5 identical sisters. And so, the firstborn was henceforth known as ALLMOTHER. At first glance, walking around the orchard looks deceptively utopian. After all, thanks to Iris, the remains of human civilization have ostensibly endured. There's a living, breathing home for people here. There's safety, save for the toxic air, of which the ALLMOTHER provides filtered masks for all the sisters to wear. Things don't seem so bad here. There are green spaces, a waterfall, a simulated sky. There's parties, music, a record of humanity, a bar to get fucked up at, a society. And yet, despite all this, the basis for utopia is, unfortunately, a flawed one. With Iris at the center, civilization revolves around a singular religion that is both constantly enforced and perpetually self-governed.
Grace to the ALLMOTHER.
The ALLMOTHER cannot be questioned, must always be praised.
Heki Almo.
Even language and colloquialisms center on the miracles and premise of how the orchard comes to function. Greetings, responses, acknowledgments, and goodbyes all go back to Iris. Hair to hair, sister.
Mother.
6 to 1. Heki Grace. Heki Almo. Presiding over everything is Principal, who, at the near mention of insurrection, is quick to deliver punishment. An execution we're forced to look at through the lens of imagination, projected onto the ceiling for all of us to look at.
This is them burning for their sins.
There's no looking away. Violence lingers and is elevated by the faculty of the mind's eye. As Watcher, our duty to commune with Iris's memories forces us to become the single most important vessel to perpetuate the propaganda machine. We see that which is holy, the difficult choices Iris once made that lead to our civilization, of a time before grace. And we must report what we've witnessed, revel in the light. Heki Almo. At least, that's the hope, anyway. But this Watcher is different. She learns of Iris and Principal's deception and begins to see through all the lies of this supposed utopia. That religious rot goes all the way to the top. Not just with how the governing body of the garden operates, but for how the precariousness of our entire world is built up into that which is sacred. How the problematic subjectivity of Iris's memories are made into undeniable objective truth. That which cannot and should not be challenged, but prayed to. Hair to hair, 6-1. Through the rest of the game, the communions, the revelations, the betrayals, the insight. Everything Watcher learns and what she does works toward undermining the religious figure that is Iris and her society of the Orchard. To fight back against what we thought we knew of the world. An epistemological destruction of utopia. We're left with no choice but to resist. In the 1920s, and in the wake of World War I, a group of writers that left the United States for Europe spent years of their life writing about their new perspective of modern civilization. Disillusioned by the capabilities of man, famous poets like Ernest Hemingway, Gertrude Stein, and T.S. Eliot wrote poems featuring narrators who felt alone and directionless, embodying the spirit of how many surviving soldiers felt after returning home from the Great War. This movement, and this group of people, came to be known as the Lost Generation. In T.S. Eliot's The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, Eliot writes of a man who is incapable of doing much of anything except think about all the ways he's failed and will probably fail. A man unable to do anything except ponder why it's worth doing anything at all.
And indeed there will be time to wonder, do I dare, and do I dare? Time to turn back and descend the stair with a bald spot in the middle of my hair.
Prufrock spends his days, and indeed his life, stuck in this perpetual state of pathetic reflection. An eternity of apathy and self-desperation. Always thinking, always reflecting, never moving toward any notion of chance or progress. A life in liminality.
Do I dare disturb the universe? In a minute there is time for decisions and revisions, which a minute will reverse.
Iris is not the person we thought she was. At some point after the collapse, Iris accepts a gift from the occupants, the opportunity to live forever. And although this aging immunity is what allows the orchard to blossom, it also marks the beginning of her very, very prolonged end.
And would it have been worth it after all? Would it have been worthwhile after the sunsets and the dooryards and the sprinkled streets, after the novels, after the teacups, after the skirts that trail along the floor, and this and so much more?
Stuck forever in adolescence, Iris spends her 1,000 years communicating with the occupants to relive memories, not just of her own past, but of her parents. Originally leaving hastily and with that raw teenage hostility, Iris was never able to make amends with her mother. She left angrily and was never able to apologize. She now spends her eternity in reflection, reliving those memories and imagining conversations of what could have been. Unable to process and incapable of doing anything in particular about it. Forever stuck.
Would it have been worthwhile if one settling a pillow or throwing off a shawl and turning toward the window should say, "That is not it at all. That is not what I meant at all."
It's this tension between Iris's inability to process her past with Watcher's ability to learn from memories that illustrates Iris for what she really is. Not of a villain, but of a victim in her own right. A teenager suspended in the tension of adolescence in perpetuity. A grieving daughter, a remorseful kid, a flawed protagonist. And so she stands there, at the end of the station, praying to the memories of a past that is long out of reach, reliving the days, the conversations, the good and the bad, unable to do anything about them but watch and watch and watch.
For I have known them all already, known them all. Have known the evenings, mornings, afternoons. I have measured out my life with coffee spoons. I know the voices dying with the dying fall beneath the music from a farther room. So how should I presume?
Before she was a god, the All-Mother was the only thing her parents wanted her to be. Iris, their teenage daughter. But Iris existed in two worlds. Her Chinese world back home and her Canadian world in school. While her parents talk about the life spent in protest back in the motherland and now ask persistently for them to eat yimia together, Iris maintains her Western identity, opting for pizza instead of traditional birthday fruitcake, and bullying supposed friends like Xiao, the other Asian immigrant, for being too Chinese. None of this is inherently bad. First-generation students and other immigrants struggle with existing in two worlds all the time. Kids aren't equipped to handle something like this yet. It takes time. Teenagers are allowed to suck. They're allowed to grow. But what resonates strongly in 1000 Times Resist is how the Asian diaspora of the Western world is illustrated through Iris, something that in other media is either typically ignored or worse, simply aestheticized. More specifically, even quote-unquote orientalized, where games or movies borrow visual iconography of Asian culture in order to fill a setting with no real commentary on the culture they pull from. Asian characters and architecture become objects, set dressing, a meaningless visual. And while it's important to remember that Iris is indeed just a teenage girl, it's even more important to highlight she's an Asian teenage girl. One that is dealing with two different identities and struggling to have them coexist. One who is filled with teenage angst and dealing with her own disillusionment as much as she is wrestling with femininity and assimilation. One who is both undeniably Asian, but simultaneously not Asian enough. One who is trying to find herself in the world she was thrust into. Not just once, but twice. One who seeks a future to make for herself outside the pressures of an immigrant home. And before she could reconcile with any of these issues, her world was flipped and was then subsequently forced to leave. A fight with her mother is now the only lasting memory that lingers. A feeling of betrayal, of anger, of disapproval, and of an entire world, an entire future, now resting on troubled shoulders. With the only thing she can do, the only energy she can muster, is to look back and wonder if there was any other outcome that could have taken place. Anything Iris could have said or could have done to change the future. Even if the world was still meant to fall apart, maybe she could have left on better terms. Or maybe it was destiny to, in some way, let her parents down. I'm sitting in front of my former middle school, Fruitvale Junior High, the home of the Wildcats. It's a modest, normal, not too big, not too small, middle school in the quiet, uninteresting, drive-through city suburbs of Bakersfield, California, in the Central Valley, just a few hours north of Los Angeles. There's not much notable about this middle school. For all intents and purposes, it looks and feels like most other junior highs across the nation. I ran around the track over here, used my locker every day over there, and served attention for something stupid just right over there. And yet the school is also special, not for anything substantial or unique, but for one very specific, formative experience many first-generation students across the nation face every single day. Fruitvale Junior High was the site where I first lost part of my identity. Growing up as a first-generation Latino, I spent much of my life struggling with figuring out where I belong and how to fit in. I lived in a small town just north of Los Angeles with a Mexican-dominant population. I spoke Spanish everywhere I went. I didn't learn English until I was 6, picking it up by watching episodes of Sesame Street and assimilating in school. As far as I was concerned, everyone in the world, my world, was largely like me. After moving out to Bakersfield, a town dominated by people very much not like me, I realized just how different I really was, even among other Mexicans. They didn't have accents like me, didn't dress like me, didn't listen to the same music as me. I was an outcast, a first-generation student who needed to be molded into a person who was undeniably and unquestionably American, as much as he was Mexican. And so, in time, I changed, and shed much of who I used to be growing up in that small town. I still see flashes of that life I used to have all those years ago, especially every time I visit my parents. I hear the Spanish narrators on TV, see my father's work clothes in the closet of my room, see pictures of me with darker skin hanging on the walls, and see my heritage in the food that my mother cooks. Even when I'm gone, after I've left, after all this time, there is a me that remains, and remains. Our relationship to our identities is inherently tied to the relationship with our parents. And in the case of 1000 Times Resist, specifically to our mothers. In choosing to assimilate further into Western culture, Iris inadvertently causes tension with her mom, who is much less lax when it comes to instilling more traditional values into Iris than her father is. They have a complicated relationship. One that is repeatedly toxic, but also one rooted in love. And somewhere in that dichotomy is where Iris takes everything she's absorbed, everything she's inherited, and molded it into herself, whether consciously or not. In 2019, a series of protests in real-life Hong Kong against the local government rapidly became the city's largest demonstration in history. Things escalated quickly, with many clashes against police turning violent and bloody. And while, in the end, the pro-democratic protesters were able to rescind the bill they were protesting against via voting, the demonstrations had already left their scars. In 1000 Times Resist 2019, Iris's mother and father meet in the aftermath of one of these demonstrations. They quickly fall in love and subsequently decide to leave Hong Kong as it has only grown more dangerous. Iris's grandmother disapproves of this, saying the two won't find a better life in an unknown country. But Iris's mom leaves anyway. It's the last time those two see each other. And while they still talk on the phone from time to time, that tension was never resolved, forever left unmended. It's no surprise that history then repeats itself. In time, we all become our fathers and our mothers. We think we know what's best for our kids, and naturally, we end up hurting them, or they end up hurting us. Again, Iris doesn't leave on good terms. Her mother vehemently disapproves. They have a big fight. They rarely speak to each other after, and they never see each other again. After years and years and hundreds of years, Iris inherits this same protective, motherly identity wrapped around the mind of a stilted teenager. Unprocessed grief for leaving her mother the way she did, just like her mother before her, ultimately informs the way she eventually treats her society of her clones, her children. And just like teenagers who refuse to eat noodles or finish their chores, the sisters have no choice but to rebel, whether it stems from a knife in the back or an angry goodbye, either literally or figuratively. It's all matricide, just the same. After the death of her mother, lead singer of indie rock band Japanese Breakfast, and now New York Times bestselling author Mijel Zahner, wrote a memoir of her life called Crying in H Mart, a reflection of what it was like to grow up in a Korean household in a surrounding town outside the city of Portland, Oregon. It's a devastating memoir, a heartbreaking and detailed account about Zahner's life leading up to the passing of her mother, Chung-mi, after a battle with cancer. It's a story about identity, assimilation, and mother-daughter relationships. And like 1,000 Times Resist, it too starts at the end, with the death of a mother, and tears over noodles and rice cakes. Toward the end of the book, after Chung-mi passes away, Zahner temporarily moves back to Oregon to live and grieve in her childhood home, avoiding sleep and tears by spending time cooking Korean dishes her mother used to make while Zahner was growing up. One night, while sitting alone in the kitchen, there's a knock at the door. By the time she answers, there's nobody there. On the floor of the doorstep lies a little jade teapot and a letter. Zahner sits at the table to read it. Over the course of a year, her mother had been attending art classes, forming relationships with the other middle-aged women in class and, from the signature of the letter, her instructor. Chung-mi was a dream student, never missing a class, painting beautifully, and bringing joy, cakes, and laughter with her to every weekly session. Until one day, she was no longer able to come in. A digestive problem, she said. The last thing she was painting was this one small jade teapot. Her instructor held on to it, hoping Chung-mi would get better and come back to finish her painting. It was the last time she would ever hold on to a paintbrush. After reading the letter, I found myself sunken onto my couch, bawling, thinking about a Korean mother and her unfinished painting of a mundane jade teapot. I was stunned. How could I mourn someone this deeply I've never met? It broke me. And yet, it was Zahner's immediate response that pulled me right out of it, instilling a hope I don't think I could have placed in the moment. Why hadn't she waited for me to answer the door? Clearly, my mother's art teacher knew she had passed. Yet, she kept this letter addressed to her. And if it was for my mother, I wonder, why hadn't she written it in Korean? Had she translated it specifically for me? There was a part of me that felt, or maybe hoped, that after my mother died, I had absorbed her in some way. That she was part of me now. I wondered if her art teacher felt this way too. That it was the closest she could get to being heard. Whether it be through cooking, eating, painting, parenting, we all take a piece of our mother with us. It doesn't matter if lessons are not heard. They are still somehow subconsciously ingrained. The identities we find through our mothers and the way we live with and without them are frequently inherited. There is a you that remains and remains. After her death, in a conversation with Iris's mother that may or may not have actually happened, Iris unloads a millennium of catharsis in a final sentence. She mournfully and regretfully says one thing to her mother, that despite the chance to go back and visit home, she never did. Just like her mother before her, she never looked back. After a beat, Iris's mother responds.
Good girl.
It didn't matter that Iris's mom never really forgave her for the way their relationship ended. Because at the very least, she understood. Inherited from her mother in Hong Kong and from the experience of seeing Iris leave was the idea that in whatever world kids grow up in, they always have to leave to make their own way. Try as you might to stop them. And maybe, just maybe, they take a piece of everything they've learned from their relationships at home with them into adulthood. Even in death, there is futurity. And even though Iris didn't really get that, it was her clones, her sisters, her watchers, and her blues that still, regardless of the fallen utopia, ultimately inherited this lesson in the end. Toward the end of the game, the medium of 1000 times resist as a game is completely subverted by the insert of an FMV. A video played both forward and in reverse of what is presumably real-world Hong Kong. It's a surreal moment. Dreamy. A car drives on the highway, zipping past fauna. Apartments scrape a melancholic sky. People walk backwards into subways. Traffic lights reflect off the lens until they become hazily obscured and dissolve into a midnight skyline. An ocean reflects the neon lights of an entire world standing above. And as quick as the video comes, it's gone. A fade to black. And all we're left with is that unsure feeling of how to process such a radical moment. 1000 times resist asks a lot of questions about identity, about immigration, about mothers, fathers, about resistance, violence, about society, humanity, and about futurity. But in its premise and through its narrative, there's really only one question that ties all of them together. What would you do if you could live forever? How would you wrestle with all these questions found within the self? Would you reflect on them, dwell on them, process them? Would you have any doubts? Would you agonize over regrets? Or could you accept them? Could you move on? Or would you be stuck in that philosophical void forever, hair to hair? In this moment, in that long, dreamy sequence of video, we ponder all these questions and more. We quite literally sonder about who it is behind the camera, about the life they live, about the footage they shoot, about the memories they make, and about who they're for. Perhaps this video belongs to Iris's mother and father when they lived in Hong Kong. Perhaps it belongs to the developers of Sunset Visitor, who flew back to visit home and filmed the video. Perhaps it belongs to anyone and everyone who has spent time staring out of a car window, fathoming the life they've lived, are living, and will eventually live. Maybe, somehow, it's also all our memories. In this moment, we grasp onto those digital memories locked deep into the recesses of our own temporal lobe and attempt to stare, make sense of them. Like looking through a distant window of smudged glass, dipping into the murky waters of a past that does and does not belong to us. After all, can you even remember your own earliest memories? In the end, the objectivity of what or to whom these memories, this video, belongs to is, in truth, only a small part of a bigger picture. Memory, like identity, is inherited. The specific made universal. We all house old, distant, forgotten memories of who or what we used to be. We clutch at them so tightly as to infinitely chase a lost sense of feeling we so desperately want to experience again, but can never relive. We all fathom the history our mothers and fathers took to get us here. But we can't transport ourselves. The past is the past. We cannot go there, step down into it. We cannot get stuck in it. She was my champion. She was my archive. She had taken the utmost care to preserve the evidence of my existence and growth, capturing me in images, saving all my documents and possessions. She had all knowledge of my being memorized. She observed me with unparalleled interest, inexhaustible devotion. Now that she was gone, there was no one left to ask about these things. The knowledge left unrecorded died with her. What remained were documents and my memories. And now it was up to me to make sense of myself, aided by the signs she left behind. How cyclical and bittersweet for a child to retrace the image of their mother, for a subject to turn back to document their archivist. Iris found herself continuously stuck in attempting to relive a past she could not change. She stared forever into the mirror of memory, unable to move. But for Watcher, these memories were a chance for inheritance, a chance to understand history and form something new, to learn from the past. For Watcher, memories are an opportunity to inherit a better future. It doesn't matter whose memory or what video this is, but the effect it makes us feel and what we take with it. In the end, all the answers to 1,000 times resist questions rest on a final, big, existential question. An ending built on choice. What did you learn from the relationships you've had, and what will you take with you? Life functions in a similar way. All our identities are built through what we inherit from our relationships. Who we are is determined by lots of little factors. Who our parents were, where they came from, how we're raised, who we're friends with, how we respond to adversity, how we respond to betrayal, how we respond to kindness, and how we fit into every single second, minute, hour, and day that is the outside world. It always changes how we look at the past, what we take from it, how we respond to it, how we resist. But what matters is how we choose to walk into the future given everything we've gone through and will go through again. If not for our sake, if not for our parents, then for those who will come after us and inherit all we give and what we inadvertently leave behind. 1,000 times resist isn't just a story about immigration. It isn't just a story about mothers and daughters. It isn't just a story about growing up. It's a lesson for how to live and live and live and live. Because even after you're gone, there will always be a you that remains, and remains. Let me know what you think of 1,000 times resist. And if you haven't played it, then I encourage you to do so as, again, there's so much I didn't even cover. When you do play it, how will you interpret the ending or that FMV? When you play it, will it be on your Game of the Year list for 2024? I'll be waiting for you down in the comments. Until next time, my name is Christian, Heki Sabrum, and we'll see you in the next one.